Welcome to the Friends in Film podcast. My name is Janet Urban. I've been teaching Friends in Film for 15 years. I show people how to get into the film industry and work, how to become a professional. What you're going to learn from me is all the inside, unspoken stuff that you will not hear anywhere. Even if you've been doing background on film sets, you will not hear how to actually get inside and excel to these top positions in the film industry. As a director, as a DP, as a producer, as an actor. What you're going to learn here is all the stuff that film school doesn't teach you, that you need to know if you want to actually excel to the highest levels. See, we think that the film industry is so hard and that it's going to take us a long time to get to where we want to be. But what it actually is a bunch of small steps that you do that get you on film sets, that get you learning your craft and getting good at your craft and getting opportunities to do your craft so that you do it consistently and get called for it every single week. So come work with us with Friends in Film. You've taken the first step by listening to this podcast, and I look forward to enlightening you everything that you need to know about working in the professional film industry.
What's up, you guys? I'm here with Jake Tremblay. He has done the program, and now he's a successful art director and production designer in the industry. You want to tell us a little bit about what got you started and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Quick recap. My toe dip into this world was through theater initially, and with a focus in acting. That's how I started to get on set back in New York City. I started doing Janet's program with the mind to move out here to Los Angeles. And really, I love being on set. That was a discovery I made. And so I wanted to set myself up for the best success with that. Discovered Janet's program while I was saving money in Maine to move here to Los Angeles. And it intersected nicely with where I was at in my life. I started implementing the program in New England, getting on some shoots there, trying out the methods, doing a lot of the mind work and that sort of coaching, and building a resume. And then eventually moved out to Los Angeles in 2015, almost 10 years ago, geez. And I've been implementing it ever since, and it's just kind of at this point, kind of habit. It's,
just part of our
life
now, huh?
And you just keep rinse and repeat and working it. And along the way, it's been exciting to see how these kind of concepts and stuff have gotten workshopped and refined and honed. And, seeing where the program is at now, where folks can, pick it up, and it's very dialed in and focused and executable. It's exciting. It's been an exciting journey.
And something that you mentioned, so you guys, like, the Friends in Film program is developing, and it's been developed like over time. So Jake, you said something like, dang, I wish I had like some of these concepts like when I started. And what we're going to talk about today is centered around the 80-20 principle, the 80-20 rule. And that is basically, we focus on getting 80% of our work on the professional sets, the things with a bigger budget, the union sets. And then you spend 20% of your time getting on the lower budget stuff where you hone in your craft, where you work in a specific, where you want to end up. And there's a lot of power in doing this. And so, yeah, you were talking about like, dang, I wish I had that. But you kind of did that, like, even though it wasn't as like formulaic back in the day in the program, you still like made that happen, right?
Yeah, the concept was definitely there. And I'm excited that it is refined to the point now where there is this, kind of benchmark of 80%, 20%. It's kind of a nice guideline to keep in mind. Back when I was getting developed and implementing this stuff and starting here in LA, it wasn't as clearly defined a concept, but it was something that, was naturally enacted, and I think did contribute to where I'm at today. A specific example of, before it was the 80-20 thing, but in my career history, I was working on a wrestling show. as an art PA, so kind of the bottom of the totem pole in the art department. That was kind of my regular work, my bread and butter, if you will, the professional set that I was on, and learning under a production designer, making professional connections, some of which I still use and take advantage of today. The special effects guy on the wrestling show, Dave, he's who I call anytime. I called him for the rain on the project we did in December. I was like, Dave, who can do this? I need help. And he hooked it up. So that was kind of the 80%, if you will. And it's kind of fuzzy how much percentage was really in it. But that was the majority of my focus was on that. And then on the side, on weekends and stuff like that, was when I would be taking smaller projects, unpaid projects, passion projects, but where I would have the opportunity to be the production designer, to take on more responsibility, learn, make mistakes, and grow. And also, for a designer, your portfolio is important. If you're trying to be a grip, you don't need a portfolio. But for a production designer, a costume designer, a cinematographer, folks who are gearing toward that career path, your portfolio is kind of your calling card, and it accompanies your resume when you're going out for jobs, when new people are considering you for a position. So those smaller passion projects were how I was starting to build my production designer resume and portfolio. But yeah, they're not sustaining in and of themselves financially or career-wise. Those smaller projects, the connections I was making on them and such, it was a lot of other people who were starting out or film students or something like that. At this point, 8-10 years later, some of them do have influence. Those smaller passion projects, the 20% that you're using to hone the craft you want to be moving into, those, at least the ones I was on, at the time, it was with people who were not already in the biz. It was folks who had just graduated film school, people at the beginnings of their careers.
Oh, you mentioned something that I wanted to bring up. You said those projects by themselves are not sustainable, or they're not sustaining, which a lot of people, and maybe you, the listener, maybe you are in this position right now where that's a majority of your work. Maybe that's like 100% or 90% of your work, and like every now and then you get on a paid set. And that's not the best place to be in to build a career, because you need the connections on the bigger budget sets. So that's how you move up and get sucked into the professional industry. And yeah, so that's an important thing to realize, and that's what Janet taught us how to do, is how to actually get on the bigger budget sets. And there is magic in this, because when you take your experience on the lower budget set working in your craft, whether it's art department or wardrobe or camera or whatever it is, and you're able to, when you get on the bigger budget sets, you're able to talk in a different way. You actually like establish yourself as a peer, and they know that like you're not at the level that they're at, but you're going to be moving up. And so
demonstrates that interest and commitment, that someone who's just talking about wanting to do something like that, it's very different from someone who's like, well, I was on this little project this weekend and this thing came up, and it gives you an in to talk to like the production designer on the big project, like how do you handle these kinds of things? Then you get to start a conversation, and then you plant yourself deeper in their mind as someone who is wanting to grow and learn in this field, as opposed to someone who's just like, oh yeah, I just PA and kind of, want to do this one day or other. Like there's not a whole lot of ground to explore there.
And to illustrate that point, like if you're PAing on a movie or something, and you want to do camera, but you've never done camera, it's going to be weird to go up to the camera people and be like, hey, I want to do what you do. How do I do it? Like, as opposed to like, oh yeah, like I shot this film last week and I had this problem. But I saw you just solve that problem in like 5 seconds when it took me all day. Like, how did you do that? That was really impressive. And then they'll start mentoring you on set. That's how you develop mentors. Yeah. A personal example is I was working on a commercial as an art PA. It was a union job. And the following week, I was booked to do special effects on a short film. And so there was like a specific gag where we had our talent, or it was a ghost, and she was going to come up out of the water, and we needed like smoke and bubbles to come up around her. And on this union level set, I was like, I'm friends with the art team at this point. So I asked the lead guy and I asked the set dresser, like, oh, by the way, like I'm working on this thing next week. I'm doing this gag. Like, do you know like how I should go about it? If you have any tips or what kind of equipment to look into? And then they started mentoring me. They're like, oh yeah, rent this machine, and then oh yeah, attach like this hose to this air compressor. Just poke some holes in it. You got it, dude. And it was so it did a lot of things. Like one, I'm getting professional advice, what the pros would do, and two, and like now it establishes me like a bit higher in their mind. Like, oh, okay, like Omar is he's one of the good ones because he's actually like doing it. And it's a good example, I think, of this 80-20 principle.
Yeah. And it sounds like that also increased your confidence on the smaller set, having
absolutely.
this kind of advice, so you were able to show up and present a better better work in that environment.
Yeah, it was very like reassuring. Like I had a general idea of what to do, and then like asking the pros what they would do, it was like, okay, cool, like I'm on the right track. And then they helped me. They saved me so much time and like problems.
Yeah, troubleshooting.
So yeah, definitely that confidence was a big benefit to having these relationships, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
like we get on the big sets to develop relationships with people in the union and people that do it as a full-time career, and not just student filmmakers or like passion project makers.
Right, and folks who are not getting paid to do this kind of thing and established in the industry. Yeah. And I also want to just mention that in this vein of building these kind of relationships with these professional people and growing your career within the industry, having specific moments of interaction is a much better way to leave an impression on someone than to have just kind of a general interaction with someone. Like, I'm sure this lead person now is going to associate with Omar that you came to them with a specific thing. They shared their input on this specific thing. You weren't just going to them and being like, oh, I like art department's cool. Like, that's not going to make as much of an impression with those people as, hey, I love art department. I have this project. I have this specific thing. Let's talk about it. Let's have some details. That's going to stick in that person's mind a lot more. And then when they're crewing up on the next project, they're going through things, they'll be like, oh, Omar, I need to find out how that worked out on his project. I need to, bring him on here and he, see what he learned, and we can chat about it over lunch, and he can, he's an invested person in this who's going to make me look good. So
it's all about nurturing the relationships.
Yeah.
And then when you establish yourself as somebody that's actually taking action and not just waiting for somebody to give you a handout, but you're actually like in charge of your own career and doing it this way, which, Janet taught us this strategy. And when you do it this way, that's how you move up and have the professionals thinking about you in this way. It's very powerful. It's very important.
Yeah.
Hi, Joe. You gonna join us?
Hey, Joe. Speaking of professionals.
Okay. Yeah, jump in whenever you need.
But
do you want to talk about? Oh, we're gonna say.
Oh, I also just want to touch on, like, as much as we are strategizing about how to stick in people's minds and all of this sort of stuff, that's kind of like a thing to have in the back of your mind that you're knowing. If you come in with that being your main objective, as opposed to the main objective being to connect with other people and have humanity and artistry in it, people will see that. And it's very easy to spot someone who is just there to, check things off their list and climb and such. Like, you need to have some humanity to it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
It's like, it's one thing to be like professional. I mean, we're in a freelance industry and everybody understands that it's all connections. So that is a component to it, but it can't be your sole focus. It also has to be like, I'm here to do a good job. I'm here to like make the production the best it can be. And so it's like that thing along with like being cool to hang out with on set. So it's like a blend of all of these things. That's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, exactly. You want to make the person feel like a person and feel appreciated and good. You don't want to just go and be like hammering away at them or something. So
yeah, it's important. Do you want to talk about the recent project we worked on?
Yeah. We were on a commercial last month, and I was designing it. I brought Omar in as one of my set dressers. So yeah, I'd love to open up and talk about some of the specific things that happened on that project that might be relevant for wider appreciation.
One thing that I really admired about the way you were doing your job is that you were leading from the front. You were actually like helping carry things, and you were very involved with your team. Like you were really good at delegating tasks, which is important for like head of a department to be able to do. And also you were just so aware of all the moving parts, which is really impressive. Like you gave me a task and then that was all I could focus on. But then I noticed you're like juggling like 5, 6, like 10, 20 things at one point. And that was really cool. It was really cool to witness. And it, that's one of those things where like, I'm sure you weren't able to do that like when you first started, that was,
Yeah. And, on a smaller project where it's just the production designer and that's the whole art team, you're not able to delegate stuff out, and you do have 5 million things all pulling your attention at once. I was lucky on this project to have, I think there were like 5 or 6 of us on the art crew. So I was much more empowered to delegate certain things that did require, a level of focus to my team. And then my role in that case becomes more checking in, making sure those specific tasks are progressing the way they should be. If they need adjustment or recalibration, checking in with that along the way, but also trusting my team to execute what I hand off to them. So
maybe we can talk about a little bit more of what the project was exactly.
Yeah, it was a commercial for a electronic device.
Yeah. Can we talk about like the scenes we built a little bit? We had like a club dance party scene. There was like a soccer thing we shot outside. There was some fake rain, even though it was raining.
We had to make it rain on cue, and nature's not as accommodating all the time. So it was a rainy day, and then we made it rain harder at times. We had that. We had some interior house scenes. We had like an alfresco dining scene with food and a dog.
We had a dog actor.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved? Like, how did you get that project?
That project came. I was referred to that project by another production designer who I work with, and she and I refer each other regularly for projects that we're not able to take on. She happened to be traveling in Paris, and so she referred me to take this project. So referred me to the producer. The producer called me. We had a chat, kind of got a feel for each other. They shared the details of the project with me, the creative, who the client was, what the budget was, and the schedule. I was able to negotiate with them on that to make it fit in with my schedule and holiday plans and stuff. I did have to adjust my plans a little bit to make it work, but that's what a negotiation is. And then, yeah, it was just the recommendation of a fellow production designer and then my portfolio and resume that they looked at and were like, he's the one we want for the job.
Nice.
So
And then, so how did that work? Were they just, they have like a basic idea of what they wanted to have in the commercial? Or and then you were like kind of fleshing it out? Or did you come up with the ideas? Or like, I'm just interested in how it all kind of like got like started.
yeah, I mean, they had some initial concepts, like they wanted to have a camping scene, they wanted to have these house interiors. So that was in development. They kind of had a rough idea about that. I was able to offer that I have contacts for trailers and airstreams and stuff. So if that's something they wanted, I have that established already. And they kind of shared that the concept was a modern IKEA sort of look to the whole thing, which I was able to point to pieces in my portfolio that show that I can tackle that and deliver appropriately. If my portfolio was just grungy narrative stuff, I don't know if I would have landed a commercial where they wanted a clean, sleek, modern look. So having past examples of that kind of gave them the confidence that I would be able to provide what they were looking for.
And then, so how does that, did you come up with like sketches or like, I don't know, use Procreate? Like,
Yeah, I didn't even do any sketches for this one. It was more just we jumped right into a lookbook. So they had storyboards already.
Oh, okay.
So I was able to pull those specific storyboards, and then we weren't building any sets, so I didn't have to develop a full set design. It was more about taking pictures of the locations that we wanted to shoot in, calling out some of the modifications that I wanted to do to the locations to bring in
what?
color stories, to like change the color of the drapes, or change out pieces of furniture, or if there were some pieces like that big yellow couch that was existing in the location, but I still called out that I wanted to use that couch, and how it would tie in with the overall look of the project. So yeah, that one, if we were building sets and painting things and doing wall treatments and stuff like that, then yeah, it would be appropriate to have sketches and drawings and, get approvals on those. This was a very fast moving commercial. I had like a week to prep it.
Wow.
So it wasn't one where we could go back and forth and adjust drawings and do all of that stuff. It just kind of it had to be more, here's a lookbook, here are the options, tell me A or B. If neither A or B are working, I will go out and find another option, like the camper, the Airstream. I think I presented probably 12 or 15 different options, and they went back and forth and discussed with the client and talked about because this campaign it wasn't just for America, it was for America, for Europe, and for other international markets. So the components that were going on screen had to be somewhat ambiguous. I couldn't lock it into a specific location. It had to be more universal
That's so fascinating.
feel. So that was something that was informing, like, as I picked out different details of the set dressing and stuff, I had to be careful and make sure it wasn't too culturally specific, so that it could be shown in a broad range of markets. So the camper was a big discussion in that they went back and forth. They initially asked for an Airstream, which I presented some Airstreams. Then feedback came in that it was too American feeling. So I presented more like camper van styles, things that you would see in Europe more, with Mercedes and those sorts of branding, as opposed to like Ford and Dodge and American brands. discussion ensued. People had feelings. Eventually it came back around, and then I had to be checking in with them and saying, okay, we're coming up on the date. If we don't book something soon, we will not have anything. So, gently pushing them into making a decision was part of what fell upon me to do. And then when it came down to it, folks with the loudest voice and the most say decided that they didn't care that an Airstream placed it firmly in America. They wanted an Airstream in this spot, and so we booked the Airstream. And then the compromise that the director came up with to satisfy our European markets and such was to shoot the scene twice, once with the Airstream and once without the Airstream. And that was a compromise that was reached to satisfy all the creative cooks in the kitchen. It made the shoot day go a little longer, but that's part of a compromise.
Yeah. So many moving parts, dude. It's really fascinating. I'm just like, I love hearing about how it all formulated. Because like in my perspective, you were just like, hey, are you available?
You got a very small window of what was going on my end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then, I show up and then, whatever, like, okay, we got to set up these tents. And I was like, cool, I love doing that.
Yeah.
And so like that part, like backing up to like, hey, we need to have like a camping scene, and then fast forwarding to like, okay, now we're actually like setting up tents and a camper and these grills. We rented grills and all of that. I don't know, it's cool. I love seeing how the art or the concept develops.
Yeah. And something, this probably applies to other departments too, but something I've had to work with in art department is having a personal stake in things to a point where I can make informed decisions, but also releasing my personal attachment to everything, because like the grills you mentioned, I researched them, I found a vendor that had them, we set the account up to rent them, took time out of the truck pickups days to pick them up and bring them to set. Folks spent the energy to drag them from the truck over to the place where they were supposed to be. And then the client looked at them and said, we don't want those. We put them back on the truck. The truck brings them back to the rental house. It's a day. I can't have a personal attachment to those specific grills because they might not be desired after all. And that's, if I spent energy being like, oh, wow, we worked so hard to get these grills here and all this and everything, and what a waste of time, geez. Like that would just hamper my ability to continue showing up and doing the work that does need to be done.
Yeah, that's an important concept in this industry. One time we were dressing a gymnasium. I was on a separate commercial. It was a Mucinex commercial. And we had to Greek the logo in the basketball court. There was like a soft padding on the wall, and Greeking means taking out the logo. And so we're putting up like a colored vinyl on the pad, and then we put up a secondary color on the outsides. And we spent so much time like putting it up, getting the sticky stuff right so it wouldn't show.
Making sure there's no wrinkles and bubbles.
Exactly, yeah. And then a client tells the production designer comes to us. She's like, yeah, we're going to take these off. And we're like, okay. And we just took them out. But, that's one of those things where like we can't have a personal attachment to what we put in. It's part of the job, It's just like, okay, we give them an option. If they don't like it, that's fine. We all want it to look the best it can be. But an interesting tip for that one, when the lead man was helping me take them off, and he's like, yo, just take these off, but keep them set up in a way in case they change their mind again, we can put them up fast. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Because they'll change their mind again. It's not done until it's done. And you see it airing on the screen, because you might even wrap for the day and everyone goes home, and then you come back and they're like, so we have to redo that scene. And if you don't have the pieces to redo that scene, like I had on the last day, they asked for the hose coupler or whatever. I had thought we were done with the hose and that was not going to be playing anymore. So I had to run back to my apartment during lunch and get the hose pieces to make that work, bring them back. And then we ended up not using them and not doing that anyway. But, you know, you got to be prepared for all of it.
Yeah.
So as the head of the department, as the production designer, yeah, my role in a project starts way before the day of filming. Because I have to prepare everything and make sure it's all going to show up and be there on the day of filming, which does take pre-planning. And also, yeah, there is a certain amount of commitment that is required in that sort of leadership role. My day does not end when the camera wraps. I do have to follow up and make sure that everything is set for the following day as well. That's a balance that kind of has to be felt out and decided based on one's personal abilities and commitment to the project. I know that I can't show up and do my work if I don't have the right amount of sleep and food in my body and stuff like that. So that is something that I do have to prioritize in the mix. That does mean that as I'm looking at all of the different tasks, I do have to prioritize and let go of some things that, you know, would be nice to hone and make sure are, you know, detailed and worked out completely. But I have to look at everything that has to be worked out, focus on the big things that really require my input, and then smaller things, delegate those out, you know, like with the truck and the pickups and stuff. I kind of give an overall general concept of these are the places, these are what we're getting, and then I leave the execution of that and the actual minutia of how to strap each piece in and where to go for lunch and, you know, what the gas level of the truck is and stuff like that. I could spend time and energy on that, but it frees me up for other big things if I am able to delegate that to the lead person and to the people on the truck and just give them the broad strokes and let them hone in on those details. As a production designer, I'm the head of the art department. I do have to look at, as I'm crewing up, things I consider are, I mean, big first and foremost is how is this person personality wise? Are they someone I get along well with? Are they someone who communicates well, who is going to represent me well on set? My department is an extension of me to a degree, and as this is not just something I'm showing up on the day and doing, it is a relationship I'm building with the production team, with the director, with the cinematographer. I'm having in mind future projects with this team and wanting to, you know, deliver and work with them well on this project so that that will lead to more projects with that person. Personality in my crew. I want people who, when something comes up or a change is made or whatever, they're gonna go with it, not be like, well, you just had me working on this for 3 hours and now we're throwing it away. What the heck? Like that's not the personality I need to have representing me. So there's certainly, the personality is definitely a primary consideration. I do like to look at the project, look what's being asked. Is it going to be interiors or exteriors? This one we had some stuff out in a park in the rain and stuff like that. I wanted to make sure I had people on my crew who were going to be down for that, and okay to work in those conditions. I also, I mean, I tend to start with, especially on a high level commercial like that is high stakes for me as well. I like to bring people in who I've worked with before, who I know, who we already have a vocabulary established, and they kind of have a sense of how I like things to look, how I like things to be run. The folks who are going to support me in that way. A lower stakes project, a smaller project, I'm more into trying someone new out, giving a greener person some, an opportunity to learn and to, show me what they can do. It's so, yeah, I definitely look at what the project is and what all's involved in it as I'm crewing up. I also, at this point in time, who I tend to call first tends to be the folks that come to mind first. So people who I've been in conversation with recently, people from the last job that I liked working with, that sort of thing. So I do at this point have folks, who reach out and who keep the relationship alive and keep me updated with what they're doing. Those folks tend to be more in my mind, and so they're the ones I call first. And I do also, when I'm crewing up, I do try to, if there's a specific thing about the project that brings to mind a specific person, I'll go to them first and see if they're available. If it's more just crewing up and making sure I have enough set dressers to do whatever comes up, then I'll kind of spread a wider net and see who gets back to me first. It's, again, looking at the specific project and the needs of it. I do try to give opportunities to new folks as much as possible. It's how I was able to rise up, and it's how we are able to continue having a vibrant, diverse community and pool of talent. So I think it's important whenever possible to do that. But there are certainly moments where, like with the rain gag, I'm not going to call some random person and be like, hey, do you think you can figure out how to make it rain? I'm going to call someone who that is their specialty. They are recommended to me by folks that I trust, and I can call them, tell them what I need, and then they execute it and deliver and make me look good. So yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes in before the day from my end in how I'm going to put the team together, what I expect the needs of that specific project to be, and how we're going to do it the best way possible.
So kind of what I'm hearing you saying is that when the stakes are high, when you're on a big budget set, when you're with celebrities, you're with big national companies, you're with a production company or agency that could make or break your career or really push your career to a higher level, you're going to go with people that you've worked with or that have come highly recommended to you.
Yeah, it is an important consideration when I'm crewing up, especially on a project like this one that is a high stakes project for me. It's with a production company that I hope will continue to hire me. It's with a big name director. It's for a international client and agency. That's a situation where I'm going to be less open to having room for risk or room for error or something like that. I want to make sure my crew is tight. I want to make sure I'm being reflected in the best light possible. I want to make sure that the people I bring in are going to be able to execute what's asked of them with a good attitude. And it's, within that, I hope that the people who are showing up on my crew are somewhat aware of the mindset that if we do well on this project, that's going to make Jake look good. Jake will get hired on another project, and then he'll be able to bring me back on for more work. Mm-hmm. So it is a higher stakes situation where I'm going to go with folks that I know and who I know are going to be able to deliver as opposed to someone who I'm not so sure about and don't know as well and am less confident in.
To bring this back to the 80-20 principle, on that shoot, there was a PA,
Yeah.
Nye. Her name is Nye, and she was a PA, but she was gravitating towards the art department. And I think I may have been one of the first people in the department that she talked to. But she told me, she's like, oh yeah, like I've set decked and I've set dressed on like these other projects before. And because she's there on set as a PA, like she's already making the right moves and has the right connections and has a certain level of reliability and professionalism. And by her being there down to help and like establishing herself as like already one of the team, even though she wasn't hired as part of the art department, she became like the art PA. And so that's what we're talking about as when you're on the bigger budget sets as an assistant and you're doing the craft work on the side, then you're able to have that confidence to get pulled into the department, or the department sees you have that confidence and the way you move and speak, then you get pulled into the department. So yeah, you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that was a wonderful example of, what you said, being a PA on a big project, having some experience in a smaller environment to give you the confidence to approach that department head and offer yourself and build a connection. I, as the department head, saw the interest there from her. She was someone I didn't know, so I wasn't going to give her the really important tasks. I started off having her do smaller things and seeing how she did and what level of detail she put into it, if she was, mindful of things and not breaking them and stuff. And by the end of the project, I was having her take on more responsibility and bigger tasks, because I saw demonstrated a talent and a commitment to that. It was a really beautiful example of that, I would say.
I have a comment. So I know one of the things that I look for in somebody that either I might approach them to see if they have an interest in doing sound, but as a department head there, if somebody came to me that was interested in working in the sound department, one of the things I would look at is how they're performing in the department they're in. Is if they're a PA, are they there all the time on set doing the stuff that we need the PAs to do? Are they doing the stuff that PAs don't like to do? Yeah. Are they doing the job, all aspects of their job, whether they like it or not, and giving everything to it? And if they're not, if they just want to do all the cool stuff and move up without being a full team member, I'm not so interested in working with them. Even if they would probably do okay in the sound department.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't. I'd give somebody else a chance over that particular person.
And that's a situation where personality would trump talent, I would say. I do watch the PAs and watch which ones are involved and invested and caring about the work, even if it's a simple thing like taking the trash out. Like, are they dragging it and leaving juice along in the trail, or are they being conscientious about how they take the trash out? I do watch that. I do notice that. It does affect who I put my time and investment into and who I say, well, good for you. Keep it up. That's it.
It's important for us to be able to go with the flow when changes happen. That's how we get hired back, because this environment that we're in, this industry that we're in, it's just inevitable that something's going to change. The power is going to go out, or the weather is going to change what we're going to shoot, or something like that. The director and the DP see the thing on camera and they decide that it's not what they're looking for. And we cannot take this personally. It's not anything to do with us, we can spend like 3 hours or whatever putting the thing up or like making it look the way we were told to make it look. And then when they see it on camera, they're like, oh, never mind. Take it all down.
Well, the one component that I'd kind of like to add in there is that they're under a tremendous amount of pressure to get things done. And when they ask you to make the change, they may be under a stressful situation and not really thinking about how they're asking you to do it, which could then come across as being disrespectful. So that was sort of the point that I make. And it isn't that they are being disrespectful, they're focused on all these other issues that you mentioned. When I go home at night, I'm still working. They have to get this thing done, even though all these problems have come up. So being their best self when they're asking somebody to make a change or do something, they might not be in their best self. So how do we as people working on set, how should we take that or deal with that or make that mean?
I think, I mean, if I can jump in from my kind of side of that, that's something that I do try to put focus into, to make sure that my crew is feeling respected, to make sure they are feeling fulfilled and like I'm glad to have them there. That's not something that everyone on a project will do. Sometimes there is intense pressure and 10 different client voices in their ear, and the clock is ticking and such, and maybe they didn't have breakfast, so they're already not in a great mood or something. That can occur, and I think what's important is if you're feeling offended or disrespected about something, is to examine if the request was coming from a place of a heightened space from that person, but it's really just a request to make a change for the good of the project. If what you're looking at is not, in fact, harassment and not a personal attack on you, it's just someone in a heightened state who is asking for something and maybe not using the best words to ask for it or such, it's important for us to be able to remove taking that personally, look at the meat and the heart of what is being asked, and then go execute that with a good attitude, and maybe even infuse some good energy and some positivity into the situation, because that's an opportunity to do so.
I have a cool story about this topic of not getting offended when in like the heightened state of like somebody snapping at you or whatever because they're in a tremendous amount of pressure. I was working on a commercial, and the production designer on that commercial yelled at me because I was about to wipe some plexiglass with Windex, and if you do that, it may fog, and I didn't know that. And so I was literally like about to put the rag to the plexiglass, and he yelled across the room. He's like, "No, don't fucking do that." And then I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he didn't like directly apologize, but he was just kind of like, after that he was cool. But the reason why he yelled is because like he's probably has like 10 people like talking into his ear about this high stakes commercial. And he's spent like so much money like building this thing and designing it, and now it's finally there on set and we're about to shoot it, and he doesn't want the PA to like mess it up by making the plexiglass all foggy. And anyways, the way I approached that was I was just like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, don't do that." And then he calmed down. He's like, "Yeah, don't do that because then it'll fog." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that." And I grabbed another rag and I cleaned it with water. And the thing with that is I understood that the way he approaches me, the way he speaks to me does not have anything to do with me, really. It's just that's what he's going on, and I know that he's got a lot of stuff going on. And just like my own, like protecting my own energy, there's no reason to get bogged down in a negative mindset because of it. Like I could have like beaten myself up like, "Oh, like why the heck he's talking to me like that? Like, does he know he's talking to," whatever, like all prideful or whatever, and with a bruised ego or whatever. But I was just like, I don't really care. Yeah, like as long as he's not like attacking me as a person, and that, then yeah. And then also
But could
he
you
was.
have made it mean that he's attacking you as a person? Would that be a...
I could have easily gotten caught up in a mindset of like a victim mentality of like, oh, like he's just like picking on me for whatever, a number of reasons, because I'm the art PA or whatever, or anything like that. But I didn't, because I know that the only bad can come of that. And then like after that he was cool, you know, like he like, you know, shook my hand, and he was chill to talk to after that, and we're, you know, chatting about other things. Like, so I know that I understood by getting into this industry that there's a lot of like, sometimes there's a lot of nervous energy or a lot of stressful energy, and the way we communicate on set can be very short and snappy, and that's okay. I don't let it bother me.
Yeah. And I think it is important to examine, you know, you might receive something one way, but then examine, is this a personal attack, or is this just a person in a heightened state making a request?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure I've done that too, like in the heightened stressful state, like snapping at somebody. But I think because like everyone knows that I don't take it personally, they receive me that way as well.
Yeah. And it is something, as a head of department, as someone who is delegating and making requests and making changes all the time, that is my role. I do try and couch my requests with respect, and maybe lean into that even more, to keep the overall energy uplifted and such on set.
Yeah,
It's not something that everyone does, and that might just be their style.
Have you ever worked with somebody that is their style? And even though their style is different than yours and their style is a little bit more, you could say, confrontational, are they still can they effectively get the job done? And I'm not talking about somebody that screams and throws stuff, and not to that extreme, just somebody that you have a very humanistic approach to yourself. So this is somebody that's not quite so humanistic. Maybe they're a little bit more business minded. They are, you know, just cut to the chase. Let's leave the emotions out of this. I've got this job to do, and you're here to help get this job done. So somebody with that perspective, are they still effective at doing the job that they're doing? And is it still worthwhile to work with somebody like that?
I think better work is produced when people are in a good mindset and have positive energy going into it. Does the day get made when people are not bringing a uplifting personality, and maybe they're just brusque and robot-like in their execution of it? Sure, we can get the shots and do the day and deliver something. I approach this whole industry as more of an artist, and especially in light of AI and those things coming up and stuff, I think it's very important that we have feeling and we have personality and we have a conscious positive energy infused into this, because that is what gives it life. That's what allows viewers to connect with it. That's what elevates it from just a thing to a special thing. I've worked with people who have negative personalities, who maybe are, you know, not being conscious about how they treat their crew, how they communicate with other folks on set. And I tend to not gravitate to those people as much. I like to build community and connection and relationship with people who feel good and who I can make feel good and who make me feel good. And that's where the longevity starts to become a factor. I mean, this kind of builds on what we've been talking about, but Omar, you mentioned at the beginning how it was nice to see me as the designer, as the head of department, pitch in with my crew and help with that. And again, that's another conscious thing that I do as a leader, to build that energy and camaraderie and community with my crew. it's something in the higher level union projects, the roles are more clearly defined. The designer does certain stuff, the set dressers do certain things. It's very clearly laid out. On a non-union project like the one we were on, there's opportunity for me as the head of department to support my crew when I'm able to. Like at the end of the day, if I don't have to rush home and send all kinds of emails and do all kinds of stuff, if I do stay and help wrap some stuff out, bring some things to the truck, help in that way, my crew sees me doing that, and that builds strength to that relationship. They want to help me more. They see me as a human who's interacting with them as opposed to just some boss who comes in and tells them what to do. I think paying attention and being open to those opportunities to build relationship is important, and it gives them the confidence that I'm not just making demands without thinking about what goes into it, that I do have an understanding of the work that needs to go in on their end to execute my requests.
Yeah, that's something that I really respect about you as a leader. Like I really admire. It does definitely create that morale boost, like in the team, because it's just important. It's really refreshing to see that from a leader, and also the way you like solve problems and like handle things with such a cool like level head is just so impressive. Like it like trips me out sometimes. It's like, dude, like how did you like solve that problem with such a zenful state? Like it's really cool.
I mean, problems are to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a place that I kind of start from, and it's not, I have this plan and now the plan is going to go exactly how I have it laid out. It's kind of like, I have a plan of how I would like things to go, and I expect change to occur and different things to come up, and I need to be able to move with that gracefully and without pumping negative energy onto my team or being personally attached to a certain thing that then no longer exists. Expecting change, expecting things to go differently from how I planned them is something that I walk onto the set with. Which then allows me to encounter those changes more effectively. I do like to try and anticipate changes and have a backup thing in my pocket to offer. That goes into the expecting change, kind of looking at the overall piece and project and seeing where changes might come up or shifts might occur, and having some thought put into how I would deal with that, so that then if it does come up, I kind of have a direction to go in. The goal is to have a good time. I'm not in this industry to be crushing myself and hurting people and stuff. I'm here to do good work, make beautiful things, and build a good, loving, supportive community in doing so. So I have to move a certain way and prepare a certain way in order to make that a reality. Did you want to talk about the pink drapes a little? I feel like that might be a specific example of kind of going with the flow.
Yeah, a good example of this concept that you're talking about, like expecting and anticipating changes to happen and not being attached to a certain outcome. We shot in one location on one day with these pink drapes, and then somehow between the move to the next location the following day, we lost the pink drapes that were gonna hang up in the loft area. And it was cool to see, we spent time looking for them and like digging into the truck to really find like every nook and cranny of where it was. And then when we couldn't find them, I don't know how you did it, but you like talked to somebody, and then you came to me, you're like, oh yeah, we 86 the pink drapes, we're gonna use the white ones that are already there. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. It was so cool. How'd you do that?
Yeah, so kind of where I was coming from with it, it was two different locations on two different days, but it was supposed to be the same character and they were supposed to have the same feel. So one way that I came up with to do that was to have the same pink drapes in the one location and then have those in the other location, and that would, build that connection in the person viewing the piece. Not a requirement. It wasn't something that was specifically laid out by the client or whatnot. It was just a part of the design that I wanted to have incorporated. And yeah, it felt like it was almost getting to the point where you guys were getting a little annoyed with how much I was like, all right, I understand you looked through all the boxes. Please look through all the boxes again. Take every single piece out. I really want these pink drapes. And a lot of time was spent in doing that and in searching for them. When I'm keeping an eye on the other departments, I'm keeping an eye on the lighting team and how their work is progressing, and when we're getting closer to camera and being up and stuff. As that came closer and it got to the point where even if we did find the pink drapes, there wouldn't be time to put them up. I approached the director. He's the ultimate decision maker on any of these creative things. And so I approached him, mentioned that we were planning to put the pink drapes up. The white ones are already up there and in place and ready. They don't look bad. They don't take me out of the scene. I, as the designer, am okay with them being there. And he shared that he didn't have a feeling one way or the other strongly. And so then I was able to go to my team and say, hey, I know we put a lot of energy and work into trying to find these. We don't actually need them at this point, so y'all can move on to the next things on the list to do. And yeah, it didn't really go much above the director because it wasn't like a specific client call out or something like that. Other things that are specifically part of the spot that have been asked for, if I'm not able to deliver those, it becomes a bit more of a conversation with the client, getting involved and producer and such. If it's going to affect the overall spot, if the drapes are white instead of pink. It wasn't that high level of a conversation this time around. But yeah, kind of looking around, seeing what else is going on, seeing when I'm coming up on the time to make the call, is it's part of my job. It's part of what I'm there to be doing. In this 80-20 concept, I would say it's important to keep in mind even right from the get-go, because there's a potential in only doing passion projects to just swim in that pool, and those are the connections you're making, and they're not going to take you very far, and you're all kind of in this little pool together. Sure, you can learn a lot, you can grow, you can do some pretty cool, amazing things with that. But if you're not also in the mix with these professionals, like we were talking about Naya, the PA, she was on this big commercial production. In doing that, in getting on that as a PA, doing her PA job well, having a good relationship with the production coordinator, who then, encouraged us as the art team to take her under our wing and to, give her some opportunities. If she hadn't done that and had only been set decorating on tiny projects, she then wouldn't have made the connections with me, with Omar, with our team that I expect to lead her to greater success and to building a career. I might hire her as a set decorator now or something because I saw her capabilities. And that wouldn't have happened if she hadn't put a significant effort and time into getting on that bigger set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important to have this concept of working 80% professional work and 20% passion projects or indie level stuff. Because I mean, the reason why you're listening to this podcast, or the reason why you're like doing this program, is to level up and to actually make this a career. And if you want to do that the best way possible, or just overall, and if you want to do that, you have to make professional connections. You have to make these relationships at this level of the bigger budget stuff, because that's where you want to end up if you want to make this a career. And the best way to do that is to have this blend of spending most of your time where it's going to give you the biggest payoff, which is making the connections, making the relationships, and getting that experience. Even if it's, you're getting experience as a production assistant on a big level thing, you're seeing how the pros move. You're in that energy, you're in that space, and you're absorbing it. You're able to learn from it. When you take that experience and bring it to a lower level passion project, automatically you have a new sense of confidence and a new sense of, wow, like I know how to solve this problem. I know how to make this happen smoothly. And you're able to contribute to the project even more. You become more valuable. And on top of that, you're developing the craft that people are going to hire you in. So when you go back and forth between the two, it generates so much more work for you. It generates so much, like, a higher quality connections with people.
I mean, if I can jump in,
Yeah.
Some examples that come to mind of how this 80-20 principle has paid off for me. The wrestling show I mentioned that I was on, when I was an art PA on that, I was introduced to this special effects person who on the wrestling show, and he's someone who I still rely on in my roles as production designer. This last project, we had to have a rain special effects. I called Dave up, who I've known since I was an art PA, and he knows me and has gotten to see my career grow. And we have a quick chat. He refers some special effects folks who are great with rain, and I'm set up for success on the project. Another example is I worked on a TV show for, like 6 months or so. It was a while, as an art PA in the art department. I was, doing little tasks and getting crafty for the department and, like the basic stuff. But while I was there, I was building relationships with the set decorator, with the set designers, with the graphic designers, with all of these other folks who now, when I'm production designing and I need a graphic designer, I call Sarah up. She knows me from that project and saw me start as the art PA on that project. And now I have her number in my pocket. I know how she works. I know her style. When I need a graphic designer with that skill set, I know who to call. I don't have to reach out for recommendations and put a bunch of extra legwork in. I know the graphic designer that I want to bring on, and I call her.
And if you spent 80% of your time working in the passion project world, what would have happened?
I wouldn't know a graphic designer who can deliver at the level that I need now that I'm at this professional level. So yeah, it's like looking at every step you're taking, not just as something in that moment, but as a seed that you're planting for a payoff down the road too, is very important. And that's something that helps me keep personality top of mind. I'm not just existing in a specific moment in a vacuum. I'm existing in an ongoing timeline with these people, and I want to, make them feel good so that timeline can continue.
Yeah, I mean, another example of the 80-20 is I production designed a short film, and it was a freebie, and it was difficult. It was challenging, and I did it because I knew I had this concept in mind. I knew that if I spent some of my time here, it would set me at like a higher level when I get on the bigger budget things. And so that's exactly what happened. Like, I was able to, when I got booked on like a bigger budget music video or a bigger budget commercial, I was able to say like, oh, I was, talk to my art team. Oh, by the way, like I production designed this short film last week, and I was able to talk about this to the lead person and the production designer, and they're like, oh, dang, okay, like Omar's actually making moves. And this is how we set ourselves apart by doing the Friends in Film method. Is we're not doing it like hoping something is going to happen. We actually go take action and we generate our own work, and we do it in a way that elevates us and generates more work. One of the things that Janet always tells me, or tells us in the program, is you get on the bigger budget sets to make union connections so that when you're ready to join the union, you actually have a network of people that can hire you. And that is one of the powerful leverage points about doing this, about making this happen, is you're not hoping to join the union in the future. You're actually making the necessary connections, the quality connections of pros that are going to be your peers in the future and hire you as a peer.
The limitations of these small scale passion project pieces where, sure, there is more freedom to make mistakes and to try things and such, but you're not going to be exposed to as many new ideas and to as much opportunity for growth as you are on a big set with the pros who have been around the world, who have done all of these things and just kind of come and execute that. Being on those bigger sets around those kinds of people is going to open your mind and your eyes to new ways of doing things that you never would have even conceptualized if you hadn't gone into that bigger world. A situation that is small and limiting, by definition, there's not going to be growth in that. A situation that is full of professional people who have careers, who have built careers around this and have the skills and the experience to deliver on those careers, that's going to be much more eye-opening. You're going to be exposed to many new concepts, new ways of doing things that you hadn't been previously. There's a lot more growth there. And if we're talking about a career that we're trying to grow, as opposed to a career that just is a specific thing, then we need to be putting ourselves in situations that provide opportunities for that growth. And that is not in a safe, small, confined thing with your buddies. That is, the growth is going to come from stepping into these bigger places, exposing yourself to bigger ideas, bigger concepts, bigger ways of doing things, and building relationships with those people and those folks who also have taken those steps to hone a successful career. I don't want to be too crude about it, but my dad has a saying that you can't soar with eagles if you're hanging out with turkeys. So, well, it's, nice and comfortable and you can do some cool things with the turkeys and stuff. If you're not pushing yourself to fly and explore and do these things with eagles, then you're not going to be an eagle. You're just going to be a turkey. So what do you want? Are you listening to this podcast so you can be like fuzzy about like, a little film career? Or are you listening and actively taking steps in your life to advance your career and to grow in it and to step into all of those potentials and possibilities? Like, if you're here, you're probably trying to grow and trying to develop this and stuff. So that's the way to do it.
So starting out, I worked on a lot of like lower budget things, just to get on set and to actually build that experience. And, that's important to do. We do this program to get on film sets. And then fast forward to when I got sucked into the professional industry, and I'm actually learning from professionals, making these relationships and making friends in film that are teaching me and mentoring me, and even just like when I'm exposed to their professionalism and their the way they move on set, it really changes the way that I moved, because I know how they solve problems. I know how they go about things, how they communicate on set, how they're able to, like Jake, like stay level-headed and focused when something unexpected happens and we have to solve the problem. So when I have these examples and these role models, these mentors, these peers, and I go back to the indie world, I'm able to approach it with that same mindset, with all of these examples that I've been exposed to. And you're exposed to a lot of examples when you're on these bigger budget sets, you know. Like on our commercial, there's probably like 60 people on the crew, something like that. So that's 60 professionals that I'm exposed to about how to get the job done. And then when I go to the indie world, when I'm on like a 10 crew like short film or something, I have that same level of professionalism, even though it's like a lower stakes or a lower budget thing. And because of that, we're able to add that much more value to the set and become that much more valuable to the production, make it better, elevate it. And that's the magic and the power of this thing, is that we elevate ourselves, and it elevates the projects that we work on.
And a benefit of being in that 80% world is you get to see other people in the positions that you want to be in, and see those positions modeled, and see how other people in that position currently do it, take the responsibility, see how they delegate, how they manage it all, for better or for worse sometimes. And then, I mean, that's been why I've arrived at these conclusions as a production designer, that it is important to keep the energy and the morale of my crew up. It is important to keep a big picture focus and not hone in on the color of the drapes to the detriment of everything else. All of that is because not only my own mistakes and stumbles along the way, but also because I've gotten to see other production designers in the role, and how they handle details not working out quite how they want them, and if they do hold up the whole production, and what that does look like, and how it reflects on them and their career, and getting to see hopefully positive examples of that, you know, like you mentioned, getting to see me handle these kind of things. I'm sure that's going to inform how you handle things as a production designer as you move up in your career too. So not only hopefully getting a bit better paycheck and building the networking and connections and growth opportunities that these 80% professional sets are going to provide, it is also an opportunity to see your future craft and career modeled for you, and then you get to decide which elements of that you want to hold on to and infuse into your own path, and which things you see not working or not being how you want to do it. And so then when you get to be in that position, you get to do things differently. So yeah, that's been a very helpful part for me, and something about PAing that I did enjoy when I was able to is it is a bit lower stakes. You're not responsible for the look of the set or the footage being captured. Your responsibility is a little lower, so it does allow you more opportunity to observe the people in the positions that you eventually want to vector towards. It's something to be embraced, and it is a beautiful learning opportunity to just observe other people and how they do the things that you want to eventually be doing. Yeah, what I see is sometimes, with production designers especially, certain ones will get attached to a specific production company, and that becomes their bread and butter. But then if that production company changes or goes under or something like that, and that's their only connection and their only hiring opportunity, then they're kind of out of luck. I look at it kind of like how I look at investments. You got to diversify your connections and your income streams. And I think that applies as well for a film career. The more connections you're able to make in the industry over the course of your career, the better it is for you. I mean, not only if like one of those companies goes under or something and then you've lost a connection, it also helps to have a wide variety of connections, because then you're able to lean more toward the ones that you do like working with and that do encourage you to grow. And there's more freedom to veer away from the connections that aren't growing you or that aren't fulfilling. We're here in Los Angeles. There's hundreds of production companies. I want to be on all of their lists. I want them all calling me, and then I get to pick up which ones I want to work with and grow with. You start building a connection with one company, you focus on that, you put some intention into it, and then you grow. You go to the next production company, you keep going. You don't just stay stagnant with one company. It's kind of like the 80-20 thing, where like if you just stay in the safe zone with the little passion projects or the one production company that you know, you're not going to grow. Your career's going to stagnate. If you're out there building more connections, keeping the good ones alive and infused with energy, but continually expanding and growing, then that, yes, it naturally leads to a growth in your career and a growth in your opportunities as well.
One of the business goals of doing this 10-month program in Friends in Film is, we call it 50-50-20, where you generate 50 connections that refer you work, 50 connections that hire you for work, and 20 connections that mentor you. And I mean, I'm at a point now where I have way more connections than this, but this gives you a solid foundation to a jump off point for your career, where you focus on creating these quality connections with people, 50 that hire you, 50 that refer you, and 20 that mentor you. And the reason we do this is because of what we're talking about. Like, you don't want to just rely on one source of work, because if that one source goes away, they start shooting in Prague or something, or they get out of the industry, then all your work is gone. But when you set yourself up to become in demand this way with the 50-50-20, then you have the freedom to pick and choose the projects you want to work on, and you're able to craft your lifestyle and your career with more freedom because of it. You know, you're not just relying on one or two sources of work or just hoping that work comes to you. Like, no, we actually set ourselves up to be in that decision-making position and choose what we want to work on, who we get to work with, and the types of projects to work on. And you know, like, you're probably wanting to do like the big features, or I don't know what you want to do, or listener, what you want to do, but we show you how to set yourself up to vector into that. And one of the ways we do that is this 50-50-20 strategy. And it's a good, they're good round numbers to focus on. And yeah, that's important. It's important to have that foundation to jump into the type of work that you want to get into.
Well, and I like those numbers too. 50-20, that's 120 people, 120 connections. If you look at a small 10-person passion project crew, you're not going to meet 120 people there. You're just not. So it forces that mentality of getting out onto other sets, getting out onto these bigger projects, so that you can meet this 120 folks that we've set this goal to meet.
120 quality professional.
Right. You got to get on a lot of different shoots with the different production companies in different places to hit that number. So
you probably have worked with 1,000 people in order to get 120.
Yeah, more than 1,000, I would say. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you got to work with a lot of people to get to those numbers, and I wouldn't be overwhelmed by that. I would welcome the challenge. And, I've been doing this almost 10 years, and would say I'm well past those numbers. So it's entirely doable.
Yeah, it's very possible. Something interesting about this concept, I'm so new to the industry. I've like been working in the industry like 3 years or so, and I'm in such like a student mentality. Like whatever like Janet or Joe or Jake like tells me, I'll like absorb it as a student. Like I'm like, okay, cool, that's what I'm gonna do. And so like Janet's like, go make 20 connections, 120 connections. I'm like, okay. So then I do that, and then I bring up this concept to somebody else in the industry, a non-union person who works but not a lot. They're in the industry but they don't work a lot. And I told him like, oh, like to have a successful career, we need to have like 50 people that refer us, 50 people that hire us, and 20 people that mentor us. And he was like, whoa, dude, that's a lot of numbers. Like it was overwhelming for him, even though he's been in the industry for so many years. But that's the reason why he's only working like once or twice a month, is because he didn't have that goal that we have, that we strive to at the end of doing this 10-month program.
So yeah, join the program, grow your career.
Yeah.
Don't sit in a little puddle with 5 people.
Even if it's a good puddle.
Yeah.
It's probably a great puddle, and you're probably very comfortable, and life is groovy. Yeah. Yep. But that's not a career.
Anything else you want to touch on, or you want to wrap it up? Yeah.
I think I'm good.
Sweet.
Cool. Covered all the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do a little
This was fun.
outro. Yeah, that was fun. Thanks.
Yeah.
That was good. So thanks for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed this.
I mean, I hope this has been helpful and exciting and invigorating for you, and I hope to see you on set. Say hi if you see me.
So awesome. You've just expanded your mind about the film industry. So instead of taking stabs in the dark and trying all these different things, how about you focus 10 months of you working in the film industry with me helping you? That would be our craft certification program. If you're interested in that, go to friendsinfilm.com/join and come in with us. That's friendsinfilm.com/join. I'll see you there.